Are you looking to become a better real estate investor? Then hang on, because you're about to experience another episode of the world's most popular real estate podcast, the BiggerPockets podcast. But before we get to this week's show, I wanted to invite you to become part of our community, BiggerPockets.com, the real estate investing social network. The membership is free, and you'll instantly gain access to networking opportunities, educational content, investor tools, and more. Sign up now and get a free copy of our book, The Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing, read by hundreds of thousands of budding entrepreneurs. Just click this link right here, or just head to BiggerPockets.com. With that, let's get to the show.
This is the BiggerPockets Podcast, show 44.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.
What's going on, everybody? This is Josh Dorkin, host of the BiggerPockets Podcast. Podcast. Hear my echo? That was kind of cool.
Nice. Introduced me already.
That was Brandon who rudely interrupted me. What's up, Brandon?
Not much. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Things are going well. It's getting close to ski season here in Denver, so we're starting to get excited. Everyone in town is starting to freak out and shake with anticipation.
Nice. And it is also coming up on the holiday season, which we all love.
Oh yeah, we love the holiday. There's no pressure, no anxiety,
nothing.
No
peaceful.
Yeah.
Peace and love.
Holidays are awesome. Yeah. Anyway, so let's not talk about any of that stuff and get right to the show, because that just gives me anxiety.
Do it.
All right. So today we are going to introduce everybody to a guy named Mike Woodward. Mike is active on BiggerPockets. He's a house flipper in the Knoxville, Tennessee area who's flipping multiple houses every year while holding a full-time job as an engineer. And I know that working a full-time job and doing anything is difficult, let alone flipping houses. So the show's going to be kind of cool, and we'll get the opportunity to learn some cool stuff. I know a lot of our listeners currently have full-time jobs and do struggle with running their businesses. So I think you guys should definitely pay close attention to this one. As always, you guys can connect with our guest by visiting the show notes at biggerpockets.com/show43. And you'll also find links to all the stuff we talked about during the show. Otherwise, if you haven't already, please jump on iTunes and leave us a review and a rating, hopefully a 5-star one. But leave us some feedback there. Yeah, the show continues to grow, and we love getting your feedback over there. It helps inspire folks who haven't yet listened to the BiggerPockets podcast, and helps us rank a little bit better. So definitely, please do take a minute or two if you haven't, and leave us a rating and a review. So with that, let's get to this interview. Hey, Mike, how's it going? Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Josh. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, it's good to have you.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, before we get started, I just want to say, the reason I asked you to be on the show is because I've always really, really appreciated your responses in the forums lately. So I just want to publicly say thank you for chiming into the forums and helping kind of newer investors out.
That was very sweet, Brandon.
Thank you. Well, I don't say that to everybody.
I'm really glad to do it too. BiggerPockets has been very important to me in my career already. So I like to give back. I like to help people that have real questions about things. I'm a fix and flip guy, so when people ask about, I've got a sink that, I don't know if I should change it or not, what kind of flooring, there's just a lot of things that I deal with every day, and it's a shame to hold it in, and
yeah.
I think that's the nice thing about BiggerPockets is it gives us a chance to, to share what we know, and I gain a lot too. So it's good. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Cool.
That's awesome. Awesome. All right. So you're a fix and flip guy. Where are you based out of?
East Tennessee, close to Knoxville.
Okay. Right on. I don't know that area that well. I've been down to Memphis once before. Kind of cool. Enjoyed it.
I've been to Knoxville a few times. It's a good place.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, cool.
It's good.
Well, how did you get started, Michael?
Well, really, it was kind of an accidental flip in a way that I got a job in North Carolina. I've got a mechanical engineering degree. And right out of college, my wife and I moved over there, bought a little farmhouse, house in 5 acres, paid about $85,000, I think, for the house. And
my God, 85,000, 5 acres.
I know. That was in 97, 98.
Okay.
So, and even then, that was a good deal. And I knew it when we bought it. So 18 months later, the company I was working for actually shut the plant down, and we needed to move back to Tennessee. So we did. We sold it for $125. We then had been working on it while we lived there, and went back to Tennessee with, paid off all my student loans and made a good chunk of change, and it really got my attention. So that was the thing. That was the moment, at least, that I saw real estate as something to do.
That's cool. I started with an accidental flip in the same way. I bought a house to live in and ended up selling it, I think 9 months after I bought it. So yeah, I think it's an awesome way to get started with flipping, is just to flip your own house. And yeah, very, very, very good way to start. So are you full-time now, or do you have a day job as well? Are you still working the engineering?
Well, I am right now full-time engineering.
Okay.
And part-time real estate. So there was a time when we moved back to Tennessee that I got back into real estate while I was still engineering, quit my job, but really didn't have the real estate infrastructure in place. And that was a big mistake. I didn't know about BiggerPockets. I really hadn't put a lot of effort into making sure that my business model was really a business model. I mean, it was just I was figuring it out as I went. And it worked, so I kept going. But I really took a risky step, to quit my job and go full-time into the real estate without having all the pieces in place to make sure that the business would survive. So anyway, so I got pretty quickly over my head in that, bought and sold some houses, had some success. And then when the real estate market collapsed, it took me down with it. So I ended up having to fall back on my engineering after that. So I'm back to engineering and then flipping part-time, but actually doing more flipping now part-time, in big part because of BiggerPockets and really learning about what I need to do with my business to make the business solid. So now I've got enough time to do both. So right now it's a good thing, although I still want to get out of the engineering job and full-time into real estate, but I'm just going to make sure that it's solid before I take the leap.
That's great. Well, so you licked your paws a little bit, right? Had a challenge like a lot of folks did in the late 2000 knots, I suppose. What is that? 2008, 2007.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of interviews with people who've gotten their backsides handed to them in that period, and we've talked to some who didn't. But I think it's really important that people hear how others, call it screwed up or not, whatever you want to say. I'm not going to say that you screwed up, because it was real easy for anybody to get hurt by the downfall. But what did you learn? What did you do that you might have done differently now that you look back? Aside from not quitting your job potentially,
Well, yeah, I'm a huge fan of failures. Really, I think they're important. I think it's important for everybody to fail. It's kind of a basic business premise that if you're going to go big, you're going to have to fail somewhere. At least most people do.
Ooh, that's a tweetable topic right there.
Yes.
That is a tweetable topic. Anyway.
So, and that's really real for me, because I learned so much with the failure that when it happened, like I said, I didn't spend any time on the business infrastructure, really the business plan. I didn't have time for a business plan because I was too busy trying to figure out the business, which really was the backward way to do it. I shouldn't have been doing it that way. I should have done the business modeling first and then went back. So in real terms, with the real estate, boy, where to start with that? I mean, there's so much to having a successful real estate business that you have to know so much. I really feel kind of bad in a way for new guys, because I know how much they have to learn, especially somebody that's new and they say, I want to buy a house in the next 3 months and I want to jump in and get going. And I look back to the last 10 to 12 years and think about everything I've learned over that amount of time and realize you've got a pretty steep hill in front of you.
Yeah.
So, don't short your education. You really have to spend a lot of time on your education. So, for me specifically, getting the numbers right, everything that you guys talk about every day, the fundamentals, making sure that the property is in the right place, that it's the right price, that you understand sales, that you understand what's a good deal and what isn't. That's really, I guess, the place to start. If you understand what things should be selling for, then you can run the numbers. So I just didn't do the numbers to the level that I should have.
Gotcha. And I think a lot of people did that. Yeah, did the exact same thing. Many got caught up in it. A lot of people just didn't thought that the trend would continue forever, and instead of sticking to their numbers, they said, there's a little more room. I got padding. The market's hot, right?
Yep.
And I mean, look, I've got houses all around my neighborhood right now where these guys have done some flips and work, and they were super excited about the market. The market was super, super hot, and now these things have been sitting on the market for weeks and not selling. And I know for certain, at least on one of them, that their numbers aren't that good. They do not have a lot of padding, and they put a lot of money into these things. And I knew when they bought that if they were going to flip it, they'd have to be super careful. And I'm watching it, and I'm just saying, oh boy, this guy's starting to get real close to bleeding, and it's easy to happen. So I press upon anybody who's looking to flip that they just be really smart about the numbers, just like you said.
Yeah. You really have to. There's just no shortcut to it.
Yeah. I think one for me, the problem I used to make is, if you're estimating what the property is going to be worth and you say, well, I think it'll be worth somewhere between 120 and 140. In the height of the market, almost everybody, myself included, used the 140 number. And the thing I think that the crash taught everyone is to use the 120 number and then maybe deduct a little bit more. It trained me to be more conservative. I don't know if you found the same thing, but.
Well, it's such a temptation really to want to get into a deal, especially when you're new. I want to do it. I want to get one. And you can talk yourself into any deal.
Yep.
You could say, well, I don't have to replace the shower. The big sinkhole in the backyard's not a big deal. I'll make a pool there, just crazy stuff that you can talk yourself into making anything look good on the numbers. But if you're really going to be honest with yourself and you're really going to do the hard thing by saying, you know what, this doesn't look good. These numbers are too tight. I'm going to back away from it. Walking away from that, it's like walking away from an auction. People get excited and they want to stay plugged in and they can't walk away. So if you can resist that, and stick to your numbers, then you'll be much better off in the long run.
Yeah, and that's key right there. Stick to your numbers. That's huge.
Yeah.
So, well, let's talk a little more specific about the kind of properties that you're currently flipping. Where are you finding them? I guess before I actually ask that, what are you looking for price range wise, and then where are you finding them?
Well, in my area, I analyze solds all the time, and I'm always looking for the sweet spot. And I'm a huge systems guy. I always look for what the numbers tell me. I've always been analytical, so that's where I start. And in my area, the price range with the most activity is between 100 and 200,000. And if you really dig into the numbers, you can see where the hot spots are with that. In my comfort level with the funding that I have available, I'm tending to pick them up at around 60 to 75. I've gone a little bit more than that on a few, and of course my selling target is somewhere between 140 and 175, something like that. So that in my area, that's the sweet spot.
So you said between 1 and 2 is your kind of range, and then you said you're able to find kind of some sweet spots. What other criteria do you use other than the pure pricing?
Well, of course, location is always important. But honestly, I really just go by the pricing. And there are some exceptions to that. If I see that something is priced really cheap, looked at one this morning, $30,000, it's like 1,500 square feet. You Google the street and you look around and there's, it's a dump all the way around. The realtor said it was a meth house. It had been recently remodeled. $30,000 for 1,500 square feet on the surface. By the numbers, looks good. But that's where, the education and just really the street smarts start to kick in, and you can recognize the difference between a good deal and a bad deal by the numbers. But did I answer your question there?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, are you looking at 3.2s? Are you looking at any kind of specific floor plans? Are you avoiding anything? I mean, a lot of people will say, I know flippers who will only work on historic homes. So just trying to figure out kind of your specific.
Sure. Yeah.
interest.
Well, last year I made a mistake to buy a house that was too cheap, really, and that sounds impossible, but the house was $11,000. And I thought, there's no way I can not make some money on this.
Yeah.
But it was only 500 square feet. So that turned into a very, very difficult thing to turn in the end because people don't typically like houses that small. They just can't live in it.
That's
a college
room.
student. It is. Yeah. Had a nice sized kitchen. But yeah, it was just too small. I ended up selling it to a college student and made money on it. Didn't lose money on it. But that was a tough sell. And I learned my lesson from that. So I try to stick to 3-bedroom, at least 1 bath. 3-bedroom, 2 bath is better, but it's tough for me to even go as low as 2-bedroom, 1 bath. It has to be a real deal in an area that I know will sell, and there's a market for that too. But yeah, 3.2, and I really look for square footage. If there's enough square footage, then I can tackle the floor plan. I have a background in construction and so forth, so the rehab doesn't scare me at all. If I've got enough square footage, then I can usually make it something that's desirable, 3.2 or bigger.
Nice.
And are you doing your own work then, or are you hiring it out?
Well, that's the other part of my education is that I started out early doing everything myself. Out of high school, I needed to pay for my first car, so I went to work for the local contractor building a house. And so, I learned how to do it. And I was capable of doing it. So when I started flipping, I did do it. I just, for really, it all boiled down to, I don't have a guy that can do sheetrock. So I need to learn how to do sheetrock. And I could do it. So I did do it without thinking about whether or not I ought to.
Yep.
And then I learned really a difficult lesson. That was part of the demise of my business early on, was doing that. I fault a lot of that with doing that. I don't have a passion to go out every day and hang drywall or
come on,
roofing. Really. It's, I remember hating the business toward the end of that. I was almost glad that it ended because I'd go out, I'd had plenty of freedom. I thought I had freedom, but I didn't. I'd go out to work on the house and I'd realize I don't like this. This is not what I should be doing. So the downturn in it gave me time to redo all that. So anyway, now I hire everything out. I have a super contractor that does everything for me. I don't have to buy materials. I never go into Lowe's or Home Depot. He takes care of the whole thing. He gives me a quote at the beginning, and as he finishes things, I pay him. When he calls me, says I need a check, I get to him and give him a check because he's really taking care of me.
And where'd you find this guy?
Well, that's another secret to what I've learned, and not a secret at all. It's a secret to part of my success, I guess.
Come on, you're charging $9.97 for that secret, right, Michael? Right. I will teach you how to find a contractor.
It's yours today, free. No, I learned, actually when I was building new houses, I learned if I wanted a good, let's see where to start. If I needed a good sheetrock drywall hanger, then I need to talk to the guy the painters. So I'd call painting companies and say, hey, who do you like to follow? And they'd give me a list. Stay away from this guy. Use these people. These are the ones we like. And you can really follow that from the end of the project all the way back. Everybody follows somebody pretty much except for the guy that breaks ground. So go to those people and ask them, who do you like to follow? And that's what I did.
Amazing tip.
Awesome. Probably might be my first or second favorite tip as it goes to flipping.
Yeah, I know that.
I should have charged more for it.
Yeah. Hey, well, so on the GC, who's making the recommendations on the GC then?
As far as what he does,
where do you find the top dog?
Yeah. Well, it's the other nice thing about the contractor that I have is that he takes care of everything. So once I found him, I don't have to find anybody else. There's a few things that he doesn't do. He doesn't do the roofing, but he makes arrangements for the roofing, and I don't worry about it. He gives me a good price on that. The flooring is something that I know the people that do good work in the area for flooring, so I just put him in touch with them, and off they go. So, finding him initially was really the hard part. I looked for months, and, you have to try somebody out. You're not going to know what they're going to do and how they're going to do it until you actually hire them and you get into it. At least that's been my experience. They all say the right things. Most of them do. Very, very few of them will actually follow through with exactly what the agreement was, and this guy does that. So once I found him, it was actually a heating and air conditioning guy that put me onto him, and it's he's been my exclusive contractor ever since. So it just makes it real easy for me.
That's cool, and that's I think a huge key there is once you find the guys, take care of them. Don't try to undercut them and get an even better deal every time, because in the long run, the relationship's more important than a few dollars here and there. So I think that's great.
Absolutely.
Well, cool. So I'm wondering, what does an ideal flip look like for you? Like beginning to end, how much would you ideally want to pay? I mean, I know 0 is ideal, but like a typical good flip, what's it look like? Buy it for how much, put how much into it, sell it for how much, and how much profit?
Well, really, the two that I've got right now are good representations of that. I paid, I think, 61 for one and 51 for the other. I'm going to put somewhere between 45 and 55 in each of those. And the houses will be like new when I'm done. That's something that I've found is important. And actually, I fully furnish the houses too. And I know there's a lot of different opinions about whether that's important. But for me, the 500 square foot house that I had was on the market for 6 months or more, which was killing me. I mean, it was just terrible for my numbers. As soon as I furnished it, 2 weeks later, I had it under contract. So I've found that it's key for me to fully furnish the houses, and everything else in the house is like new. Everything, the flooring, the paint, kitchen cabinets especially. Women really buy houses. So I make sure that if nothing else in the house looks good, if the floor plan is so messed up that you can't make it flow perfectly, at least we'll make sure that the kitchen looks good. So top to bottom, new roof, everything needs to look and smell good for me to be happy with it.
When you say furnish, you mean staged, right? Same thing?
No, actually, I'm furnishing them. It goes with the house.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's couches and curtains and everything?
Everything but the bedding.
Wow.
Pictures on the walls. Yeah. Staging, a bowl of candy in the living room, refrigerator that's running, everything. One of my taglines on my listing is all you need are groceries.
That's
cool. You can move right in. So, and it's an added expense. I'm spending probably $7,000 or $8,000 per house that most people say you don't have to. But if that gets me a contract in 1 to 2 weeks instead of 1 to 2 months, it's worth it to me. So that's what I found is part of the keys.
And have you experimented with that? Because, I would think there's probably somewhat of a fuzzy line between staging and furnishing, right? I've never heard of somebody else doing this, so I'm kind of fascinated, and I'm my first inclination is to say, what the hell are you doing? Stop. You're wasting money. And have you gone the staging route, tried it that way, and found that wasn't as effective as offering the furnished house?
Well, I kind of did test it in a way that I was not doing it before. And I knew what my typical sale time was to get a contract. If my house is just one of another 15 or 20 with the same description, it's tough to keep that in front of people. You try to stay on the hot sheets with the realtors. You try to have relationships and somehow get it out there. And that works to an extent. But when I finally decided to do this, I just kind of went full in. I just said, I'm going to try this and see what happened. And I've found that it's been very, very effective. In fact, every person that have bought houses from me since I've started doing this have said, we want the furniture. We love the look of it. We want the pictures that are on the walls. If you want it back, you're going to have to negotiate something on the price. Everybody wanted all the furniture. I haven't had a single person complain about that. And the other side of that is you never really know. I mean, this fits my model, so this is what I'm doing. I sold a house earlier this year, and the guy that bought it, when I ended up putting drywall on the ceiling in the basement. It was a unfinished basement, but I put sheetrock on the ceiling just because it looked better to do that. Some people had said that they may want that, so I did that. Anyway, we're at the closing table, and the guy looks across and he says, I really wish you wouldn't have put the drywall on the ceiling in the basement. I spent about $2,000 doing that because I felt like it was the right thing to do in general. So that's kind of where I am with the furnishing, that I feel pretty strongly because it's sold. Actually, I had another tough house to sell. In that case, it was a neighbor that was the problem. I made a mistake, and don't ever ignore your neighbor.
Yeah.
So anyway, furnishing the house got it sold.
Nice. Well, that's fascinating. Let's jump into that neighbor speak for a second there, because I think that's another issue that is oftentimes ignored by newer investors. I know I made that mistake big time in the early on, and bought properties where neighboring properties really screwed me, for lack of a better word. I mean, it was just pretty disastrous. So how does somebody know that you find a great property, but the property next door is going to burn the sale? How do you avoid that?
Don't stop. Just keep going. Literally, I say that as if I'm joking, but I don't. If I pull up to a house and all the numbers look great and it's a killer deal, and I see the neighbors have got trash or dogs or anything that smells bad, anything that would turn somebody off, I just walk away from it.
Yeah.
I won't even consider it.
Okay. Yeah, I tell you what I did. The house I live in now, we actually purchased it in the wintertime here in Denver. And it was during a year of some wicked snows. So we showed up. We were the only ones house hunting in the winter. We were walking through a foot of snow looking at the houses. And I didn't even think about landscaping, didn't think about, what the neighbors' properties, how they were maintained until the first spring came. And I noticed the guy across the street wasn't, taking care of his lawn. His lawn wasn't really a lawn. It was a pile of dirt. And, super nice guy, but he just wasn't about it. And so it took years until he sold his place for the house to start looking good. And so that would be my tip on amongst your tips, which are don't shop. If you're going to shop in the winter when there's snow on the ground, you might want to keep in mind that there's more than meets the eye underneath.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just one of those things that you can't overcome. And I've had many realtors tell me, if you can't get somebody to stop, you can't sell them the house. If they won't stop and get out of the car and go in, you can't sell the house. So that really struck me. When that finally sunk in, I realized I can't have anything on the outside that looks bad. People are going to just keep going until I have to price to a point where it's a killer deal. And, I don't want to get in that position. There's always too much time that passes if you try something like that. So it's just better.
Yeah. So what do you usually do for landscaping? How much do you spend on that? And do you have any tips for curb appeal?
Well, when I built new houses down in Florida, there's kind of a standard that you really needed to meet. And that's a little bit different because you're starting from raw ground. But I always wanted it to look really nice. We put palm trees out front and a nice entry, plants, flowers, and so forth. Here in Tennessee, we get quite a bit of rain, so it's typically pretty green. So if the lawn is in good shape and there's a few plants outside, some landscaping, mulch and that sort of thing, it needs to be soft and pleasing. It just can't be something that's ugly. I don't really have a good specific response to that. I don't have the new houses. I had a package I told them, we needed package 1 out on this address, and they'd go do it, and they knew exactly what to do. Here, I just kind of take it house at a time, but it needs to have good curb appeal. I mean, it's again the same thing as the neighbors. When the people pull up, they need to say, this looks nice. Let's go and take a look.
Okay, cool. So how do you decide then? Expanding off that topic, how do you decide how much to go? How far do you take it? I call it like if you give a mouse a cookie problem. It's always going to need more. So you update the front door, then you're going to need a new lock on it. And if you update the new lock, you're going to need a new, light to match it. Like how do you know how far to go and when to stop?
Well, really the condition of the house will determine that. If the front door is good, the front door is good on one of them that I have now, and it's not good on the other one. So, we have, like I said, every house needs to look and feel like new. So if it doesn't look and feel like new, I budget to replace that. And the pricing, the numbers have to match that. If the house is priced toward the top of the typical budget, but it needs a lot of work, I'm probably going to have to walk away from it. But if it's priced low and it needs a lot of work, that doesn't bother me because I can budget it in. It's just, I have an analysis, a spreadsheet, and actually it's linked to my smartphone. So when I go into a house, I fill this out and it tells me exactly the price of everything in there. When I walk through the house, I'll say it needs doors and trim. It needs new lighting. Flooring is almost always a given. The roof, maybe not. So when I get done with this house, I've got this complete list. I actually fill it in on my smartphone, and it gives me a number at the bottom. I've already talked to the realtor, so I know what the after repaired value is. I know what my repair costs are going to be, and then I can call him right back and say, okay, we can make an offer or we can't make an offer. And actually, we can always make an offer. It's just a matter of what's it going to be. It's listed at 43, but that's too tight. I got to buy it for 30, so let's offer 25. Or it's listed at 33 or 43, and man, I could buy it for 50. So we offer 44. We may go in above asking price just to try to get it if it's a good deal.
Okay. And earlier to go back to what we talked about a while ago, you mentioned, I asked you what the kind of ideal flip was, and you talked about these properties you're getting, you're buying them for 50 or 60, you're putting in 45, 55 into them. So what do you plan on actually selling them for? And then what's your profit look like on those properties?
Yeah, my target is always $25,000 in the end. When it's all said and done, that needs to be my target. 20, I might consider if I feel real good about it. 30 and above, of course, it's a no-brainer. You just go with it. But in these price ranges, if I'm buying for 60 to 65, again, it depends. Some I'll put 20,000 in, and some I'll put 60,000 in. So I have to know in the end that this is going to be, the numbers are going to work. So yeah. I'm typically selling around 150.
Okay.
Got it. Hey, so you had mentioned the smartphone thing, and I want to ask a little bit more about that because I think it's a pretty cool way of doing it. If you're going in there, a lot of folks say they eyeball it, but I think it's nice to be able to have a system like that. And you said you're a system guy, so. Is this just like a Google Doc that it's a spreadsheet where you've got all your estimations on there, or is it some kind of little piece of software you wrote, or is it something that you pay for?
Yeah, and this is something that's taken a long time to really develop. I had a smartphone that worked fairly well, but I realized pretty quickly if I was going to do it this way, I needed something better. So I've got a Note 2 right now from Samsung, which I found works really well, and it can handle spreadsheets. So there's apps on the Play Store market that you can get that will that you can pull up a spreadsheet and fill it out. So that's what I end up doing. I've got everything actually on Dropbox. That's where I keep my files. So when I get to a house, I've got the link, of course, through the network. So I just get to my Dropbox account. Pull up the file and I start filling it out. And actually, I can actually save it. And when I get back to my desktop at home, the saved file is there. So it works. Dropbox has really been my key for that.
Nice,
cool.
Nice. No, that's a great tool. But really quick before we go on, this is show 44 of the BiggerPockets podcast, and you can find links to all these things we're talking about at BiggerPockets.com/show44. Anyway. So how are you funding your flips? What are you doing? Has this changed over time? How did you fund them initially, and what are you doing today?
Yeah, that's actually it's been the same from the very beginning, except for the accidental flip. That was one that I got a regular mortgage through the bank and bought it to live in. But when I started flipping as the business, I found a private source to do that with, and that individual has stuck with me for going on 10 years now, I guess.
Wow.
So it's been a single person. Eventually, I've actually been doing a lot of research also on other funding sources. So, banking, I think, looks like the most affordable if you're in a position to do that. If you've got enough to put down, it looks like the lowest cost way of doing that. So eventually I'll do that. But right now it's just all private.
And how did you find this person when you first did?
Yeah, actually it's a family member.
Okay. Nice. I actually do want to circle back because my brain just started spinning. You are currently full-time, right? Full-time at work. You're working a full-time job, right?
Yep. Working a full-time job and doing roughly a flip every 2 months.
Okay, flip every 2 months. I was going to ask you about your frequency. So that answers it, obviously. How are you going about the process? Because obviously, an engineering job is a job that, at least my understanding, requires a lot of focus. You don't have a ton of time to go hang out on Facebook and play around and jump off site and disappear like some jobs, Brandon. So how are you managing your flips while working a full-time job?
The only way, in my opinion, that it's possible is, again, with systems, and that's what I'm doing. And the recent article from, I wrote his name down, but I can't think of it right now, that had the article about it's like the 8 things that are great about having a full-time job while you're doing real estate. Anyway, yeah. I really relate to that, and he mentioned systems in there. I have a system, and it's something that, you're right, I have basically no spare time at all. So whatever I do has to be the most beneficial thing possible. And after a few weeks of doing the wrong things, you realize I'm not making progress on the right things, or I'm not getting anywhere. So I have a very specific system that I've been putting in place. I've actually recently gotten Microsoft projects up and running, and I'm still working on the details of that to get that going. But that will be the heart of my system. And on that, there's links, there's timing for everything. So the list serves as a template. Every time that I buy a house, it's a brand new template that I use on each project, so that I don't have to think about what needs to come next. And that was always a problem with multiple projects. If you get 2 or 3 houses going at once, and sometimes they overlap that way, it's incredibly hard, and you spend an enormous amount of time thinking about, what have I not thought about? Who do I need to call? What do I need to be going next? So the system that I have with this list tells me the next thing to do. It's top to bottom, every single step of everything that I need to do from the beginning of the project to the very end. Hiring lawn care, getting the electricity turned on, every single thing is on this list. And when it's done, I check it off. Nice. So yeah, it follows the project, and it takes the thinking out of it. I found that I was spending probably half of my time just thinking about, what do I need to be doing next? Which was an incredible waste of time. If you've got it right in front of you, it says do this next, then your productivity goes through the roof at that point. So that's the only thing. That's the only way that this is possible for me to do that. If I didn't have that system, I just couldn't. Or I'd do 1 or 2 projects a year, something like that. And by the end of this year, I want to be up to 1 a month. So systems are critical for me.
Nice. Gotcha. And it's interesting. The people that I know who flip houses that are engineers tend to be the most systematic about their approach, and I think that's extremely helpful. Yeah. I think the background comes in, and actually establishing that makes a lot of sense. What would you say? So your system is essentially, if I understand you correctly, it's really a list, right? So it's kind of step 1 through collect, hand keys over is step 256, and everything in between is is literally you're just following up and down the line, and it's got timings for specific things in there, and maybe some of those things will kind of get thrown into a calendar. Is that kind of how you run through that?
Yeah, it really is. It's a list with links to other things. So I'll have hyperlinks to email. If I need to send an email to the insurance agent, there's a hyperlink right on the list. So when it says email the insurance agent, I just click on that and it brings up the email template that already has most of the details on it. And so I just basically update it with the address and send it on. And I try to use the same people over and over, so they know what's coming. They recognize it right away, and they know exactly how to handle it. And so just on down the line, I actually draw a floor plan of the house as well. I found that that's a very useful thing for the flooring guys. They understand what exactly goes in which room. And for the contractor, you can put the scope of work on that floor plan, put it in the house so that he doesn't have questions later on. Did you want to change that door, or you want to keep it? It's on the scope of work. And that scope of work comes, a lot of that's generated automatically. When I fill out the initial evaluation, I take notes on that, detailed notes about what needs to be changed, what needs to stay. So when I print that and I give that to the contractor, it actually populates in the scope of work. So anyway, if that makes sense, it kind of builds on itself. You take initial notes, and then that flows all the way through. Eventually, and I've talked to some software developers about this, I want to have an online system that will do all of this seamlessly. Right now, I'm having to go between software packages. It's not the most efficient way to do it, but it works actually pretty well. But eventually, I hope to be able to do every single thing from the smartphone.
That's cool.
What about the amount of time that takes? Because I don't think we've really covered that in any of the shows before. I have never flipped a house, so I just know from folks I know who've done it, right? How long does a walkthrough take for you on a property that you're picking up?
Well, that takes some time. It's an investment in that. The numbers have to look pretty good from the gut. I mean, first reaction, of course, is gut. Do I think that this looks good? If I do, then I'll dedicate the time to go into the house. So, to go to the outside, and the initial evaluation list has a line for everything that could be done to the house. So that's quite a few. I haven't counted to see how many it is, but it may be more than 100 lines. And not every one of them has to be filled out, but I'll typically take between an hour to 2 hours to go through the house initially to write everything down that it needs, so that I know when I leave the house that time, I'm not going to have to come back and do this again. If I don't buy it, I've lost the time. If I do, then I've already got my list.
And so there's definitely a commitment there. How many offers are you? I think you said you're doing a property every couple of months. How many offers are you writing for every property that you close on?
Well, probably not enough. I don't know. I'm kind of, I don't know. I've heard a lot of people say, you see 100, you offer 10, you buy one. I still have trouble with that because I don't have time to look at 100 houses. Yep. Not physically. I might look at them on Zillow or the MLS, but I can't physically go do that. So my realtor actually helps filter a lot of that for me. And when he sees something pop up in the MLS, he'll send me the link. I'll look at it. We'll talk about it. He understands this very, very well, too. It's another critical piece. You have to have, for me, to have a full-time job and to do this flipping at this volume, I have to have a very good realtor. Brandon, I think I heard you say that you've gone through your real estate classes, courses, but haven't gotten your license yet. And I'm in the same boat. And I stopped that actually 2 years in a row. I did the same thing because I realized the realtor is going to be critical. I really need a good person there. I don't need to be doing that. Yeah. So I backed away from that. So he serves the purpose there to filter the houses. So I really honestly, I'm probably buying one out of every 3 that I offer on, or maybe 4. But it's definitely less than 10. I'll offer on actually it's a lot less than 5 that I'll offer on that I actually get. So
Okay. Yeah, I'm probably still kind of in the same boat too. I tend to not offer on one. I don't know if this is the right way, but I tend to not offer on them unless I'm pretty sure I'm going to get them. Unless I'm, if it's almost perfect and it's been on the market for a long time, then I'll usually offer. But again, I'm not buying, dozens of properties a month either. Like, we're both kind of part-time flipping and it makes sense that way. So, well, anyway, so let's, I guess, move over a little bit to the selling side of things. How do you decide exactly how much to sell for? Or does that your real estate agent just tell you?
Yeah. Well, I really am focused on a fairly small area, so I have a good idea of what it needs to, what it's going to be priced at.
Okay.
And that, of course, is the first decision that has to be made. When the realtor sends me a link to a house and says, "Take a look at this," every single time I'll shoot him a text back immediately and says, "What do you think it's going to be worth?" I want his opinion. I don't give him my opinion ever. I want his opinion about what it's going to be worth, and then I compare that to my own local knowledge. And I try to be as knowledgeable as I can about my local market to make sure that I have a good idea. And of course, that's easier after you have some time in them, because when you've owned a 3-2 with a certain floor plan and square footage, you pretty much know what it's going to sell for. If it sold in 2 days, you might have been priced a little low. If it took you 3 months, then you're probably priced too high. So, experience kind of teaches you that. But I found that my realtor pretty much nails it every time. He's very good at values, and I pretty much confirm what he says. We've disagreed on very few of them, so I really rely on him.
Okay, and that's a really good tip, actually. I mean, like you said, don't tell your realtor your value. If you come up with them and they do, then you get into opinions. That's excellent. You said you focus on a small area. How small are you? What's your farm area look like?
Well, it's really a county,
Okay.
and it's I don't have a feel for the population. It's not tiny, but it's not huge. Kind of a bedroom community sort of thing. So, Knoxville is the biggest local metro area, but it's not in Knoxville. I'm outside of that some. So it's the area that I live. It's the area where when I drive home from work, I'm driving those roads. So it really helps me to know the local market.
Yeah.
And where are you finding the properties? Are these listed, or are these you're not doing any marketing for them, or are you using wholesalers?
Well, in the good old days, you could get on the MLS and have 5 or 6 projects immediately to go look at. It was effortless. They were just, it was before real estate was cool, I guess, and people weren't really in it in a big way. And, banks were always looking to get rid of their few junk properties they had. So it was very easy to pull them off the MLS. So I did that for years and years. And it's only really been recently that I've had to really get serious about the systems for marketing. I haven't had to implement them yet, but I know as my volume goes up, it's coming. It's imminent. I'm going to have to do some marketing. I've done some Craigslist, we buy houses kinds of things, but I haven't gotten any decent response out of that. Everything I bought has been off the MLS.
Gotcha. All right, and as we kind of wind down this segment, I guess my last question is, if you have any other tips for selling a property quickly, selling with what do you call it again? Not staged, but furnished. So you've got the furnished house. You make the front look nice. Anything else you do to make it really stand out?
Really, no. The furnishings have been the only thing that I would consider extraordinary to do. Like I said, every house needs to look and feel like new. It can't be ugly. You can't have a bedroom that's separated by a bathroom from the rest of the house. You can't walk from, the hallway through a bathroom to get into a bedroom. Just, so it has to flow good. But not really. I mean, just understanding what people are buying. If the numbers match, really, if it's the right price per square foot, and there's nothing that's unappealing about it, it pretty much sells. It's everybody really, everybody I know does their search for the house they're going to buy by the numbers first. That's where they start. So I've just, without being able to see the world of realtors and what they see and hear from their buyers and sellers, that would be an advantage of having your license, I think. But without being able to see and hear that, I just rely on price. Just make sure it looks good and that there's nothing detracting from it. No bad neighbors.
Cool. Very, very good wisdom there. All right. Well, I guess that kind of wraps up our initial part of the interview here. So why don't we move on to my favorite sound effects?
It's time for the fire round.
Very good. All right. Fire round. These questions, most of these come from, I think they all come from the BiggerPockets forums, where these are questions people have asked, and we're going to fire them at you, and you get to fire them back at us. So, number one,
Okay.
What is your favorite flooring for a living room?
Oh, well, it really depends. I know that the trend, I think, is toward hard flooring. I know that's my wife's favorite. She doesn't like carpet. Carpet can soften things. It would depend on the house, but generally I'm doing hard flooring through the living room and the kitchen. The layout of most houses in this area, the living room and the kitchen are fairly close. And both the houses I have right now, I'm removing a wall between the living room and the kitchen so that the hard flooring goes from the front door all the way through the kitchen and dining room. So I would have to go with a laminate or hardwood. A laminate is what I've been using. It's fairly inexpensive and it looks good.
Okay.
Right on. All right. So a flipper goes and buys a house that reeks of smoke, cigarette smoke, or I guess two questions: fire smoke, and cigarette smoke. You think of these as two questions. What do you do?
Well, really, I would do the same thing for either one. And I actually last year invested in an ozone generator. I bought the most powerful one I could find. Actually, it's one step down from the most powerful. They have an industrial size that will kill everything within a quarter mile or something crazy like that. But I have one that handles a large area. Honestly, I've found that when the demolition is done, when they tear out what needs to be torn out and they paint, that takes care of about 80%. But if I have something that's got pet urine, or the smoke smell usually comes out pretty easy, but pet urine is that's the Achilles heel to a lot of houses. If you got saturated subfloors, you got a real problem on your hands. But the ozone generator, between that and the painting, that's all I've had to do. It takes care of it.
Okay, so I got to ask a question that's not on our fire round here. Can somebody please explain to me how on earth you have a house where pet urine has leached into the hardwood floors to such an extent? I mean, I just don't get it.
I think every house I've ever bought has had that problem. Everyone.
It's amazing. You would not believe. I take my 11 and 13-year-old boys with me as often as I can to look at these houses. We'll open the front door, and of course, you get nailed with the stench coming out of the house. And the first thing I ask them is, "What's that smell like?" And they say, "Money."
Yeah.
Because nobody else. That's right. Nobody else wants it. If there's piles, if there's piles of, all over the house, 99% of the people are going to walk away.
Yep.
But I know that my contractor doesn't mind. He's going to get in there and take care of it. So
I am with you. I don't understand. I'm a clean guy. I don't, if I see cat hair or dog hair on the floor, I freak out. Like you let your dogs and cats pee on your floor. How do you do that? I don't get it.
Well, honestly, they live in it. I walked into houses in the summertime and wearing shorts because it's hot. I walk in and I feel the sensation all over both my legs. I look down and I'm literally covered with fleas from the first step into the front door. So, and the people were still living in the house. So you got me. I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know how to do it.
I don't get it.
Brandon, you live with cats.
If I see a flea on them, we throw the advantage on them, and I don't let that happen. Anyway, no, but I always say the same thing. My favorite aspect of a house when I go to look at it is smell. I want it to smell like the worst house I've ever been in. Because again, it smells like money every time. I love it. So, all right, next question of the fire round. Asbestos popcorn ceiling. What do you do?
Oh, avoid it. If I see asbestos siding is the big thing around here. There was tons of it back in the 40s and 50s. I've dealt with it before. I've had it removed. With the requirements that are out there right now for remediation for that and tenting the house and positive air pressure, all these kinds of things that you got to do that right to stay out of trouble. Honestly, if that's the only house left to flip, I'm going to do something else for a while. I'm not going to touch it.
Okay.
Smells like money to me.
That looks like jail time or something. No thanks.
Awesome. All right. How many days is too long for a house to sit on the market?
2. No, I want a contract. I want serious interest within 2 weeks. Of course it's gone a lot longer than that. I've had them for, I don't know, I'd have to look to see for sure, but probably 8 months or something was the longest. It was probably that little 500 square foot house that I had. But if I don't have serious interest in 2 weeks, then I'm questioning what went wrong with the plan. But right now, with what I put together, the pricing, what's included with the house, the way it looks and smells, within 3 to 4 weeks, I pretty much always got a contract. So if it goes beyond 4, then, like I said, I'm not super concerned. It depends on the time of year too. This time of year, late fall coming up to Thanksgiving and Christmas, I'll let that out a little bit. It's people don't make as many housing decisions this time of the year, so I'll give it a little more time. But if it's in the hot season, late spring, summer, there needs to be lots of activity. But if it's the week of Christmas, I really don't expect anything for several weeks. So sorry, that's kind of an open-ended question answer to that.
No, that's good.
Fair enough.
That's good. I had one set for 9 months. I think that was my longest. It was miserable, but yeah,
It is.
It is miserable.
It is miserable.
All right. This is one that I just dealt with, and I like this question. Pink tub, a pink bathtub. Do you professionally repaint it, replace it, or leave it?
My contractor loves demolition, so he gets the sawzall and the hammers out and just beats it out of there and puts something else new in there. I've dealt with them before. I've refinished them, but I probably put twice as much time and money into refinishing that stupid pink tub, and I really have had that. I thought, well, it's a nice older porcelain tub. It'll look great when I'm done, and it did. But financially, it was not the right thing to do. Just unless you're, on the 6th floor of a high-rise building or something crazy, I would get it out of there.
Right on.
Good.
Right on. And finally, what's the best place to buy appliances?
Well, that's a very good question. And that was something that I always, for years, assumed that the big box stores, whichever one is your favorite in your local market, would have the best prices. But I found that going to the local specialty appliance stores gave me much better deals. So we have a local appliance store, and that's what they do: washers, dryers, refrigerators. I get those for probably, I would say, between 10 and 20% less than the big box stores locally here. So I've really learned that that's the best place.
Cool. And,
That's a great tip.
and if I could add a little quick tip here, I always get my appliances, I try anyway, the day after Thanksgiving sale at the big box stores, because you can get get 4 washing machines for $1.50. Like they're like throwing. So like I load up on appliances every year the day after Thanksgiving. That's my get up at 5 a.m. and go shopping. So that's coming up here in just a few days. So anyway, I don't know, maybe somebody can take advantage of that. But cool.
Well, that's excellent advice. I really, top to bottom, I try to use the specialty shops, not just for appliances, but I found that cabinets as well. It's the same thing. I've got beautiful cabinets that come from a local cabinet supplier. Just very, very happy with the specialty shops.
That's cool. That's very cool. And then you're supporting local business too, which is always good.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well, let us.
Not that we have any problem with the big box stores who might or might not want to sponsor the BiggerPockets podcast. Offer discounts to the thousands and thousands of people on the site. Hint, hint.
I spent tens of thousands of dollars in the big box stores, so there's definitely a place for them.
There is a place.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Final section of the show. Our world famous four. Famous four. What is your favorite real estate book?
This one's easy for me. Last year, I discovered the Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller.
Okay.
And I listen to it. I use Audible. And so I listen to my books on my 2-hour commute every day. I'm driving actually an hour to work and an hour back. So that gives me 2 hours a day to absorb podcasts and Audible books and so forth. So anyway, I listened to that one last year. And I was, it was a lot of good information. And then studying BiggerPockets, I found that really BiggerPockets backs it up. And it's a very good system. If you just follow the book, it's the same advice that all of us are going to learn that get successful at it. So anyway, that's my favorite book.
Cool.
Right on. What about your favorite business book, non-real estate?
That one's a little harder. And I have to, Josh, you'll love this because I know that
you're not going to say A or B.
You know it.
Yeah, baby.
You know I am.
Come on.
You know it. Well, the thing is,
be original, Michael. Seriously, be original.
I really want to.
You don't even have to start saying no. I mean, you're a unique and magnificent gentleman, and I want to hear something new out of you.
I want to hear it. I want to hear your favorite business book.
I would have to make it up though, because honestly, true story. I'm in Florida. It's been about 7 years ago, and this realtor comes up to me. He says, Here's this book. You got to read this. The E-Myth Revisited. Yep. And he said, you got to, you're knocking your head against the wall. Check this out. You'll enjoy it. Gave me the book. I thought that was a real nice gesture on his part. And it really was a pivot point for me. It was a point where I realized I'm not doing the right thing here. I need to pivot and quit doing all this stuff myself, get out there and get somebody else to help me with it, work on the business instead of in the business. And the other pivot point
is when you read the 4-Hour Work Week, of course.
Option B was when I read 4-Hour Work Week.
I'm on page 27, by the way. And for those people who've been listening to the past several podcasts, I've been on page 27 for about 3 shows, 4 shows.
Get the audiobook. You can, when you go to the grocery store, you listen to it.
I don't leave my house, man.
When you're going to sleep at night, that'll put you to sleep. But that was another pivot point for me when I realized that I can't make everybody happy. I really can't. I can't make everybody happy. And at some point because I've always kind of been that way. I try to make everybody around me happy. And I found that I'm spending my life making everybody happy, and I'm not getting through the things that I want to do with my life. And I would love to have a 4-hour work week, although I'm kind of driven and I'm not sure I'll ever let it get that low. But I think that the information in the book, well, for me at least, it was something that changed my outlook. It changed my perspective on, it's okay to say no.
Yep.
It's okay for somebody not to be happy with what you got to do because it's what you got to do. So. Cool. Sorry, Josh.
You know what? I actually, unlike Detroit, no, I'm just kidding. I have no problem with Detroit either.
I wasn't going to bring up Detroit.
I have no problem with the 2 books. I just, I want to hear somebody with something new. I want to hear. Are there no authors out there writing stuff to inspire us besides these 2 guys?
You know what I did? I went to my Audible library and I looked down through it because I knew you were going to ask me that. And I looked through my library and I said, he's going to hate it, but I got to do it.
That's awesome.
I have to. So
I thought you were an E-Myth and 4-Hour Work Week kind of guy. The system thing. It's exactly. Love it. So and we will have the links to those in the show notes at biggerpockets.com/show43. So hobbies, Michael. What are your hobbies, Mike?
Oh, it's been so long since I've done any. I don't know. I like the outdoors. Bought a motorcycle a couple of years ago, and this is a beautiful part of the country to ride. So I like to ride. Eventually, I like to have my pilot's license. I think you had somebody else on a podcast that likes to fly.
I think we had a couple.
So that's, something I enjoy. What little time I have, I spend it with the family. One thing that is kind of nice about engineering job is that once in a while you have to travel and sometimes you can take your family with you. So I've tried to do that a little bit. So
that's cool.
Hobbies will be after I get out of my full-time job probably.
Cool.
Nice. And
right.
Brandon, you want to ask the last of our famous 4?
That I shall. All right. What do you believe sets apart the successful investors from those who never gain any traction?
Doing the right things. I mean, it sounds like a cliche, really, but we've heard it over and over. But you just, if you ask the question, you have to say the same thing. You got to run the numbers. You have to do your due diligence. You can't take any shortcuts. You can get lucky. Somebody had a post on one time that talking about is your business, or an article, is your business successful? Have you been successful because of your business plan, or were you just lucky? And I was just lucky for the first few years because I was doing what was in front of me and leaving myself vulnerable. So, the people that will get in and educate themselves and follow those numbers and do the right thing. It's a recipe. If you want to make chocolate chip cookies, you use the right ingredients. When you put them together, chocolate chip cookies come out every time.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, then you're going to get something else. So really and part of that's my systems side and analytical side, that you get out what you put in. So you put the right stuff in and you'll be successful.
That's great.
Great.
That's great. Well, listen, I think the focus on systems is something that a lot of people might be unfamiliar with, especially if they don't, as I said earlier, come from that engineering background. And I'm really glad that we spent a fair amount of time working, talking about it here on the show. Definitely appreciate you taking the time to be here. And of course, if anyone's got questions for Michael, feel free to jump on the show notes at biggerpockets.com/show43 and ask him. I'm sure you're more than happy to answer folks with their questions about systems and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and a couple other things that I just wanted to plug in here at the end. I got to give Brian Burke a shout out, because he said something one time back to the systems thing that, what he said was, the bigger you get, the bigger you get. I have a system. What I want to do is 2 houses a month, and that I want my system to fit that. That's what I want. I don't want a system where I just have to keep hiring more and more people, just for it to get bigger and bigger for bigger sake. So that was a pivotal point for me when I heard him say that. The bigger you get, the bigger you get. I don't want to just get bigger. I want to have hobby time. And the other thing too, if this is okay, I hope it is, that I contribute to BiggerPockets financially because it's valuable to me. And I hope those that are benefiting from BiggerPockets will consider doing that. Even if you don't have anything to put in the marketplace, which I really don't, I do it anyway because I get a lot of value out of this, and I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Wow. Well, we appreciate that. And that was definitely not prearranged. So,
no, not at all.
I thank you. And obviously everybody who signs up for Pro helps support the site and helps support our staff. And we're the bigger you get, the bigger you get. Well, we're pretty big, and we're trying to get the pieces in place to maintain this place and make it even better. And those the donations and the Pro contributions and those certainly help. So thank you so much. And thank you again for being on the show. And where can people connect with you besides BiggerPockets? Do you have a website or anything like that?
It's in the system, but it's not in place yet. So BiggerPockets is where to find me.
Cool. Fabulous. Well, we appreciate it, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the site.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
All right, guys, that was our interview with Mike Woodward. Lots of good tips, lots of good stuff. What do you think, Brandon, as a flipper?
Yeah,
a lot of amazing little tidbits in there, huh?
There was. I can think of like a dozen things that I'm going to use in my own business, because it is not easy to try to do anything like flipping while having a job. Like, it's insanely hard. So
yeah. That's great. Yeah. So thank you everybody for listening. Again, it's show 43. So check out the show notes at biggerpockets.com/show43. And otherwise, definitely make sure to follow us and track us and stalk us. Don't stalk, but keep up with us. You could stalk Brandon. I don't like stalkers. It's weird, kind of creepy. But keep up with us on Twitter, Facebook, G+, LinkedIn. And of course, make sure to connect with us on BiggerPockets. As Mike said, it's an amazing place. If you're not already active, definitely take the time to do so. And of course, you should definitely check out our pro accounts at biggerpockets.com/pro. There are some cool tools and upgrades that come with a pro account. So definitely want to check that out. Otherwise, that's it. We thank you so much for listening, and we'll look forward to getting back with you on show 44 next week. I'm Josh Dorkin, signing out.
You're listening to Bigger Pockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.
Don't use that.